Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Finance Magnates Blockchain Podcast. And today's guest is joining us from Hong Kong. Eddy, thank you for joining us, and please introduce yourselves to our audience.
You're welcome, Avi. Thank you for having me. So my name is Eddy Travia. Have been investing in this space since 2013, initially out of Hong Kong, and then in 2014 we moved our main office to London. I'm still traveling back and forth between China, Hong Kong, and London. Our main activity is to invest in blockchain companies, usually at the early stage level, blockchain startups. And we have been quoted on a stock exchange in London called Next Exchange since December 2015. We have also been running an accelerator program as well. And basically, we accelerate and we finance young blockchain startups.
Great. So let's just start by asking you, how do you select the projects that you're interested in? How do you evaluate startups?
So we started off as a virtual incubator back in 2013, and at the time we were mostly investing in what we could call the transactional type of companies like exchanges, wallets, and payment processors. This is what we could call infrastructure plays on digital currencies. Since 2014, we've been looking more at platforms and blockchain companies, in the sense that they start using blockchain for different applications and different industries, as you know. So in terms of how do we hear about projects, we have built quite a network for the last 4 years. So I would say the main way that we hear about startups is through our contacts and references, people that we know in the space. Some of them have been working for a company or starting a company and then moving to another project. So for example, we were a seed investor in Factom, and the people behind Factom had been already involved in blockchain startups and digital currency startups before Factom. So that's how we knew them. We are also a seed investor in RSK, which some people may know as Rootstock. And again, these are people that have been in the space for quite a while and that we knew before they structured RSK and we invested into. We receive a lot of applications. So we receive some from spontaneously every day from startups, entrepreneurs who have either a concept or already a more structured company, business plan, and potentially a product. We don't mind looking at ideas. We don't mind looking at very early stage companies. This is how we invest. In the case of some companies, we know them through hackathons. For example, we have organized hackathons, but other people do, and we usually keep an eye on that. There are also some interesting ideas coming up of these events. I participate to a lot of conferences, so obviously I meet many people around the world. And for accelerator program last year in Barcelona, we had a formal application online, and we received nearly 100 applications for that program itself. I must say that currently we receive a lot of applications, which is great. It seems the market is very active. Of course, as you probably know, there are a lot of coin offerings, and that makes the market quite dynamic, apparently.
Indeed. So speaking about coin offerings, so why right now, with this new avenue for raising funds open up, why would a startup approach Coinsilium? Why won't they just try to raise funds from the crowd via an ICO directly?
Yeah, that's a good question, because as you say, company startups could just issue tokens, right? And they don't need to apply to seed investors like ourselves. What entrepreneurs are recognizing is, first of all, they recognize the value of advisory and guidance. We have been helping all kinds of startups around the world to grow. But we have also been helping lately a couple of companies actually doing a token offering. So we also have some experience in that space. I think at the end of the day, it's not all about money. It's when you start, you need what we call strategic money, or you need smart money. You need people who are going to help you beyond $100K, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for smart money that comes in the form of advisory guidance. You gain a lot of time by going to the right people early. So, for example, in the case of token generation events, the legal advisory part is very important. You have to do this in a very thoughtful way, and you have to go through all the steps. As you know, the SEC has recently given some recommendation about how they perceive token offerings, and in some cases they may assimilate them to securities, for example. So depending on where you are based, which jurisdiction your company is based, depending on your model, your token offering model and your company, we may tell some entrepreneurs, well, maybe you shouldn't offer a coin, or maybe you should do it this way if it applies to your own model. So I guess that's what they're after. They're after just advisory services, and as well, in our case, I would say they are after our network, and they're after the legitimacy that we could bring by saying that we have done the due diligence, and we know these people, and we are an investor. The fact that we are on a stock exchange means we are going to announce it very publicly that we invest. We have to announce everything we do. So that helps them as well in terms of exposure and marketing.
I see. Actually, this is a very interesting topic for me right now, because as you said, the SEC very famously announced that some DAO-like tokens can be considered securities. And we had the same situation here in Israel, where the Israeli security authorities announced that they're looking into how to regulate the ICOs as securities in order to they're concerned about people defrauding investors, or investors losing money by not understanding what they're doing. And we also saw some announcements from Singapore. About so I know also in the European Union, I've talked to a MEP who said they're working on creating a framework. So if I'm a new startup and I'm coming to you and I'm saying I want to establish an ICO, I have no legal experience, no legal knowledge, what would you have me do? What would you recommend?
Well, I mean, if it's a project that is of interest to us, we obviously we don't function as a kind of ICO facilitator. We are an investor, and the couple of projects in which we have received or we will receive tokens are actually projects in which we still invested equity. So we always get equity. We are not a new type of fund, as you may know, like crypto funds, which are solely focused on investing in tokens. We don't do that. We still invest in equity, but we may get tokens as kind of a bonus or a way for the company to keep us involved in the ecosystem of the token. So I would say we look at the project, and if the project is of interest to us and we think we're going to invest at the equity level, then we will advise them to talk to lawyers and to legal advisors that we know. It's not a mystery today that there are only a few jurisdictions where I would say are more pro token offerings, and Switzerland has been one of them, famously for a while now, and I guess since the Ethereum Foundation ICO. We have also spoken, so we have spoken to some lawyers there, the lawyers in Singapore, and in Gibraltar, which we are speaking as well at the moment. What is of interest to us in Gibraltar is the fact that they have they have announced that they're building a regulatory framework specifically for what they call DLT, distributed ledger technology. So I think the entrepreneurs should look at these jurisdictions where, instead of being in a gray area or a kind of tolerated ICO, I would say, where the government or the financial regulator is actually looking at finding a way to regulate these companies so they have a formal status. Because the big problem is that some countries or some jurisdictions have been known, rightly or wrongly, to be kind of positive or encouraging this, but there is no really a formal. There haven't been, sorry, formal laws that are really supporting that. So there is a need for a regulatory framework, and as far as we know, Gibraltar is building one. So that's why we are talking to the lawyers there and finding out more about this as a jurisdiction that we could recommend for entrepreneurs.
Very interesting. Another topic I wanted to discuss with you is, of course, the issue of China. You're, you're a big expert on China and the blockchain economy. I wanted to ask, what's the importance of China as far as you can see it?
Yeah, so I have been in China since 2004. I was working here for a private equity fund before for a few years. So I have some knowledge about how Chinese create companies, exit companies, go to stock markets, etc. It's quite, as we all know, it's a very dynamic place, and there have been great, huge companies coming out of this market, which is, of course, a huge market in itself. So in terms of blockchain, my experience is, first of all, DevCon last year with Ethereum was quite successful. A lot of technology developers and blockchain experts were here. I was in Shanghai last week talking at a conference called the FinWise Global Blockchain Summit. It was very well organized, very interesting. So we see a lot of interest. We see a lot of interest at different levels. First of all, entrepreneurial. I mean, China is a country of entrepreneurs, and I wouldn't be surprised if, in terms of numbers, it could become one of the leading countries in terms of number of entrepreneurs and number of projects in blockchain. My feeling, my opinion is that many Chinese entrepreneurs can see the opportunity that blockchain represents. In Shanghai, there were, I'm not sure, but I would say about 50 companies exhibiting, and they were mostly Chinese. And I would say for most part, no one probably has even heard of them outside of China. So I think there will be a lot of interest for them to start, moving abroad. And at the same time, it's going to be an interesting market as well for investors all over the world to look at what's going on in China. At the moment, I would say a lot of applications built on blockchains, not only on Ethereum, but also on, I would say, locally developed blockchains like Metaverse, for example, which was highlighted at this conference. So I wouldn't be surprised if some major ecosystems came out of China. Also, China is a great place to get funding, so that will certainly help. And as we know, in the world of crypto, China is one of the largest markets in trading and mining. So I think that we have all the elements for quite a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem and an interesting one. So I'm still going back and forth between Europe, London, and China, and we haven't invested in a Chinese company yet, but I'm looking at it more closely these days.
I see. Okay, but well, make sure to let us know when it's out. We'll want to report about it first.
Sure, I will.
Thank you. Okay, so next question I wanted to ask you about, the recent news. We'll go over the recent news from Coinsilium. So why did you decide to sell Satoshi Pay?
Well, it's all in line with our strategy. So when we created Coinsilium in the UK back in 2014, and we raised funds in 2015, we told the investors that our plan was to go very early into companies and not necessarily stay for a long time, but more our exit strategy is really a Series A, between Series A and Series B level. And out of our portfolio, only a few companies have reached and have raised for Series A, and Satoshi Pay is one of them. I would say we were lucky enough to spot Satoshi Pay early, and we invested at a very reasonable valuation. And the fact that they managed to raise a bit more than €1 million early this year at a substantially higher valuation, was one of the elements that we look at before exiting, obviously. And basically, it's all about timing. It's not about the prospects of the company. We think there's a great team. We like Satoshi Pay as a company, and we hope it's going to do very well. If not only because we like the company, but also because actually we have a way to benefit from the fact that it goes well, because the company that acquired our stake is a name listed company in London, and we have warrants that represent a certain financial value if the stock of that company does very well, and the fact and it's intimately linked to Satoshi Pay because now they have a substantial stake in it. So it's an exit, but at the same time, if Satoshi Pay does very well, then we'll benefit from it as well. And in the future, I would say we will still look at these companies where we come in at the seed stage with valuation, let's say below 2 million. And if these companies go above the 5 million mark as a Series A, we start looking at potential exits. And if we can, we'll try to lock in a way for us to still make some return if these companies do well in the future.
So, sounds like a great deal. So I wanted to ask you about Rootstock, RSK. If you tell us, how do you think it fits into the ecosystem?
Mm-hmm. I think RSK can play an essential role in the ecosystem. We are seeing today the pressure and the strain on the Ethereum network due to all these ICOs and all these new tokens. I mean, if you go on Etherscan, you see I think at the moment 4,500 ERC20 tokens on the Ethereum network, and it's bound to grow. I mean, the numbers are growing and growing daily. Many more companies are trying to issue their own tokens. So I think it would be great to have other ways to do that. And RSK offers a solution because naturally it's a smart contract platform. So it means anyone will be able to create tokens and create smart contracts. And at the same time, because of its model, which kind of hybrid between a federation of nodes for the sidechain that they run, validated by the Bitcoin network, I think it offers kind of the best of both worlds. So you have all the flexibility of the smart contracts, and then on top of that, you have the security of the Bitcoin network. So I think it's a great solution, and in the future, it will also should be a great alternative to other blockchains, and specifically the Ethereum one. Yeah.
I see. And another recent investment that you've made is Endorse, a Singaporean company. I wanted to ask, so how do you see its prospects? Do you think it will be a LinkedIn killer or a LinkedIn replacement?
Well, I mean, obviously that's a very high bar as an objective. I think in the medium term, if it gains traction as a new way to basically monetize and to interact between professionals, that's already a great success for this company. Again, we come in very early. We are the main seed investor in Endorse. I've known David Moskowitz, the founder, the co-founder, for about 4 years. He was helping us in Singapore, organizing our first event there in 2013. And the reason why we like indoors is because we feel that the LinkedIn model is not a model that is appreciated by everyone. It's a model that is becoming a bit old in different ways. First of all, it's probably a victim of its success, which means you get a lot of contacts that you don't necessarily want on LinkedIn. And secondly, the business model is changing. So basically moving from a completely centralized to a decentralized format, I think makes a lot of sense to me. The fact that in a platform like Indoors, you'll be able to own your own data and you'll be able to monetize that data through a token. I think that's a great solution for a network of professionals. So yes, we really like this approach. We think it makes sense, but obviously this is a very large market. So Indoors is going to do its release its token on August 8th, and provided everything goes well, they will have some funding to build this platform and to build the first phase of the rollout of this platform. So and which probably needs more funding in the future. But I think David and his co-founder Goran Torvakar have what they are experts in smart contracts. They have the right skills to complete this platform and to build it. And we will be very happy to help them roll it out and advise them on the process.
Thank you. And what can you tell us about your investment in Factom?
Mm-hmm.
They invested in Factom. Why did you decide, and how do you see it going forward, the company?
Well, I knew David Johnston, Factom's chairman, before he introduced me this project. I've known him since 2013 as well, and I like the type of projects he was working on at the time, and he was investing in at the time. What is really interesting in Factom is that they provide a very useful service using one of the blockchain key features, which is to anchor data, to timestamp it, and to make sure that no one can tamper with. So it could seem like a basic feature, but it's actually essential for so many companies. And it makes a lot of sense for them to focus right now on the property title and the mortgage industry, which is not only a huge industry in the US, where their main market is, but also an industry that needs this kind of service very much, because as we all know, in 2008, that was one of the reasons of the crisis, was the fact that data was not shared, and there was not a system where you could easily find out the compliance that had been done on these mortgages. So I think it really makes sense for Factom to deliver this product. I think it's called Harmony, to the mortgage industry. Again, it's a high task, but they have hired people from that industry, so they have made all the right moves until now, for sure. They have raised enough money as well. They have completed a Series A round with very well-known investors. We came in before that, so we're very happy about their success until now. So the reason why we came in, first of all, we like the team, which, as you know, is a premise for a lot of investments by investing companies like us, and we felt that the market was there, huge market, and we felt that it was the right time for them to focus on that.
Mm-hmm. And you think that for established financial companies like mortgage companies, mm-hmm. The fact that they have a seed investment from companies such as yourself, does that give them a higher or easier way into the corporate world?
No, I wouldn't say that we can help at that level. I would say that in the world of to be clear, Coinsilium is not a huge fund, so I don't think. I talk to a lot of corporates, and they may know us as a pioneer in investing in blockchain. So I would say that if we look really at the blockchain level, then yes, we help bring credibility and legitimacy to some projects and some companies. But for the moment, I don't think we're helping that much at the corporate level. I think it's basically with Factom. I think we we have been successful because we have been able to help them very early, and and that's how you get, you know, in a better relation with a company. When you make one of the first checks that they get, obviously they don't forget how helpful it was at the time. Obviously these checks are small in comparison to the latest rounds, but they were quite useful, you know, as an entrepreneur. They're quite useful when you start. So I think it's more of a good relation, and building you know, good working relation with these companies and these entrepreneurs.
I see. And how did you decide to invest in CoinDash? How did you meet entrepreneurs there?
Mm-hmm. So CoinDash, I was very simply, I was a judge on the EtherCamp hackathon, and CoinDash very quickly felt to me like one of the projects that was answering and solving a real problem. And this was actually before this craze of ICO. So, you know, I think it was maybe December. It was late last year that I learned about CoinDash, and I was a judge on this EtherCamp hackathon. And at the time already people felt, well, wouldn't it be great if we had a place where we can see our portfolio and manage our tokens, and, you know, having very sophisticated and modern tools which don't exist today. So I liked obviously the idea and the project. I voted for them. Then I met Alon at an event in London. We had different calls, different conversations. Then it happened that his co-founder is in Shanghai, so I also talked to him. Then we after the investment, we even met in Hong Kong and in Asia. So yeah, I like the team, I like the project. Back in the days, our incubator had sponsored the Bitcoin embassy in Tel Aviv, which means we had already some links with the entrepreneurial and crypto world in Israel. And so, but we hadn't invested yet, and I think that gave us a good opportunity. And this year I've been to Tel Aviv twice for a couple of events, and I really enjoyed it. And I think there's a great entrepreneurial and crypto community there. Everybody knows there's great tech talent in Israel. So yeah, I think CoinDash is a good investment, and I'm sure they're going to build a useful and good platform for all cryptocurrency traders to use.
And what do you think, you know, regarding the hacking? Do you think that's gonna hurt them in the long term with confidence from investors?
Hurt them in the long term? No, I don't think so, because in terms of funding, they basically I think received enough funding as it happened. We call in the pre-sale, right? Confidence in investors shouldn't be, because in reality, this is an incident that can happen to any platform. I think everyone is learning a lot from this, and obviously everyone is changing a bit the way they are looking at ICOs. I think the fact that you give an address and everybody rushes to send cryptocurrency to that address is not a great format. I think there are other ways to do it, and obviously people are looking now at other ways to do it. So I think I think in the long term they'll be able to build a great product. And I haven't seen. I mean, there are some investors that we know that were looking at CoinDash, and they're still looking at it. So I don't think that it removes or diminishes their chance to get more investment in the future.
I see. Okay, that's hopeful, because there is a or should I say that's gives hope to hear, because, you know, there is some concern here in the Israeli ecosystem. You know, maybe this will, you know, at least on the media side, it did drew some criticism, and got the local Bitcoin embassy to issue a warning against ICOs. Obviously not naming anyone, but, you know, the local media made that connection.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the whole process is still a big experiment. I think the fact that a lot of money is being thrown at ICOs doesn't mean that it's a mature market. But if anyone has been in this space for a few years, we had incidents in different ways. Exchanges mainly have been a target of hacks or of security breaches. We all know that we're talking about digital money, right? Cryptocurrencies are basically data with a value. So it opens the doors, unfortunately, to many people with bad intentions, with ill intentions, to try to get away with something like that, to try to get some other people wallets, currencies, and breach into their wallets and exchanges, etc. But when you're from the industry, you know that this happens. This happens also in the non-crypto world. Banks get hacked regularly, and telcos, company, etc., get hacked for actually much larger amounts, billions or at least billions of data entries. So I think it's a cybersecurity risk, and there is of course a cybersecurity problem in general in the world. So I don't think it's a good idea to focus or stigmatize one project which got an incident. This is one project among many. And as I said, the ICO process model is not perfect. It's a very young model, and there's still a lot of things to do. And we are looking at ways actually to improve that at Coinsilium, and with not just by ourselves, with partners who are experts in the field, and lawyers and compliance, etc. So, but I think our initiatives and other initiatives will help improving the security in the future. And I think if ICOs become a general part of funding in the future, which they are this year for sure, then it would be great if there are more solutions and secure solutions for doing so. Yes.
Definitely, that's definitely the way to go forward. I would say. Okay, so I see we've been talking now for 30 minutes. Is there anything else that our audience need to know in order to follow up on news from you?
Well, just to know that I'm available. I mean, in general, to new ideas in the space. I mean, they can look at what we do at coinsilium.com. If they want to ask us questions, we'll try to answer as soon as we can. We are very open to entrepreneurs in this space. We like to help entrepreneurs grow and build their companies. I can be reached simply at coinsilium.com. And yes, please, anyone watching this can contact me, and I'd be happy to follow.
Thank you very much, Eddy. And thank you all again for listening to this episode of the Finance Magnates Blockchain Podcast. Please share, like, and subscribe so you can keep following all these great interviews. Thank you.